The day Kim Yo-Jong was promoted to department director, Pyongyang began to smell like blood. For some, it marked the beginning of absolute power. For the senior officials of North Korea, it was the opening shot of something far more terrifying: a purge. In early February 2026, black cars with no license plates appeared throughout central Pyongyang, moving like shadows. Kim Yo-Jong had seized control of both the organizational secretariat and the organization and guidance department simultaneously. What followed was what insiders quietly called the bloody inspection. They walked into the party building corridors without warning. Colleagues who had been laughing together the day before vanished without a sound. On their desks, untouched cups of tea grew cold. No one dared remove them. To touch a cup belonging to someone who had disappeared, that alone could mark you as one of them. At the same moment, the name of Ri Sun-gwan, once called Kim Jong-un's most trusted confidant and head of Department 10, was erased from every official roster. Anyone who had shared a meal with him, anyone who had received his signature, everyone who had ever crossed paths with Ri Sun-gwan was swallowed by the purge. Choi Jun-hyuk had spent 7 years at Ri Sun-gwan's side as chief secretary. The night his name appeared on the purge list, he threw himself into the freezing Tumen River to survive. This is the most desperate account of what lay beneath Pyongyang's power structure in 2026, the story of a man who had no choice but to risk his life to escape. Your subscription and support are the most powerful way to bring Pyongyang's hidden truth to the world. Please share this story so it can reach more people. Now let us take you to Pyongyang in February of that year. To the day it all began. I arrived at the office before 7 every morning. My desk sat in room 10 of the Central Committee building, right next to Director Ri Sun-gwan's office. Organizing his daily schedule, preparing documents for his signature, getting the meeting room ready, that was my job. I had been doing it for 7 years. Not once had I felt my position was in danger. If anything, it was the opposite. Chief Secretary of Department 10 was a title no one in Pyongyang casually crossed. I knew that. I counted on it. That morning started the same as any other. I was sorting documents when the corridor outside suddenly erupted in noise. Multiple footsteps, fast and heavy. My hands stopped moving on their own. In North Korea, footsteps like that mean one of two things: someone important has arrived, or someone is about to be taken. That morning, it was the latter. The door flew open, kicked open. Men in black uniforms entered. Agents from the organization and guidance department, armbands on their sleeves. They didn't say a word to me. They pulled open my desk drawers, searched the cabinets, and lifted out the computer tower. I sat in my chair and watched every bit of it. My body already knew not to move. One agent picked up a sealed envelope. Director Ri had handed it to me personally 3 days earlier. I didn't know what was inside. In North Korea, opening a document handed to you by a superior is something you simply don't do. I watched that envelope disappear into a black bag. Whatever it contained was no longer mine. And whatever it contained could now be connected to my name. Voices from the corridor. It was Senior Officer Park. He had joined Department 10 2 years before me. Both arms were held as he was dragged out. He said nothing. Our eyes met for a moment. We both looked away immediately. That was all we could offer each other. Park had far less contact with Director Ri than I did. He had attended maybe 2 meetings with him. The fact that he was taken before me meant there was no clear threshold. Or rather, the threshold was wide enough to catch everyone. Anyone near Ri Sun-gwan's name was a target. I had been the closest to that name for 7 years. After the agents left, the office fell silent in an unsettling way. Every drawer was open. Papers were scattered across the desk where they'd left them. I stayed in my chair for a long time. It wasn't fear that filled me, it was recognition. Something I had known all along, somewhere. From the first day I sat at this desk 7 years ago, some part of me understood it could end like this. I just didn't know it would be today. This was the day Ri Sun-gwan's name was struck from the official record. 7 years by his side. Now, I was next to be erased alongside it. On the walk home that evening, I took a different route than usual. No particular reason. It just felt like something had to change. 3 days passed after Director Ri disappeared. Department 10 looked the same from the outside. People came in on time, shuffled papers, moved in and out of the conference room. But no one spoke his name. His office door was sealed. When people walked past it, they looked away as if by instinct. Everyone understood that acting like he never existed was the safest thing to do. I did the same. Stayed at my desk, looked normal. Sorted documents, checked the approval chain, wrote down instructions as they came in. But I couldn't focus. The same thought kept circling: what was in that envelope the agents took, and how many times was my name written inside it? On the fourth afternoon, a colleague, Officer O, who worked on the same floor, came to my desk. He sat down without a word and spoke in a low voice. "There's a list." Word as the director herself reviewed it. By director, he meant Kim Yo-Jong. Just days earlier, she had been promoted from deputy director to director. In North Korea, that title isn't ceremonial. It means direct command over a department and full authority over every personnel decision beneath it. Until that point, she had largely served as a channel for orders from above. Now she was the one giving them. Officer O continued. A directive had come down from above: conduct a full reinvestigation of everyone connected to Department 10. Anyone who had contact with Ri Sun-gwan. Anyone whose documents carried his signature. Anyone who had been in the same room. I listened and quietly ran the numbers in my head. 7 years. Thousands of approvals. Hundreds of meetings. Not a single condition for exemption. He stood to leave and added one last thing. "I don't know how many names are on it." That was the end of the conversation. He walked back to his desk like nothing had happened. I stared straight ahead. 2 things stayed with me: that a list existed, and that Kim Yo-Jong had personally reviewed it. In North Korea, being flagged by the Organization and Guidance Department doesn't mean you go to trial. The conclusion is decided first. The process follows later, and the conclusion almost always points one direction. I knew that better than most. 7 years inside this system had taught me that. That evening, as I left the building, I noticed a black car parked in the lot. No license plate. I kept walking, eyes forward, pace steady. The whole walk home, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was behind me. I didn't turn around. Turning around was dangerous, too. After that day, every time I came home I checked the street in front of my apartment first. Was there an unfamiliar car? Was there someone near the entrance who didn't belong? Even on quiet nights, I felt no relief. A quiet night only meant today was safe. That day was different. Walking up the stairs, I heard footsteps from above. More than one person. The moment I opened my door, 3 men were standing in my living room. The armbands hit me before anything else. Central Committee, Organization and Guidance Department. Since Kim Jae-ryong had seized both the Organizational Secretariat and the Organization and Guidance Department, inspection teams had fanned out across Pyongyang. These weren't just investigators. This was a loyalty audit. And the verdict was usually written before they walked in. My wife stood against the wall, gripping our son's hand. He was 7 years old. The agents gave no explanation. They opened the shoe cabinet, searched the wardrobe, flipped through every book on the shelf. I stood in the middle of the living room and watched. Objecting was never an option. One agent opened the bedroom storage and pulled out an old radio. A Toshiba. I had picked it up years ago on a trip abroad. He held it up and looked at me. His face gave nothing away. Japanese goods. 2 words. I understood exactly what they carried. In North Korea, a Japanese product isn't just a foreign item. It can be made into evidence of contact with an enemy state, proof of ideological contamination. The agent put the radio in his bag without another word. The search lasted nearly 3 hours. When they left, my wife took our son into the bedroom and closed the door. She didn't look at me. I picked up the scattered papers from the floor and couldn't let go of one thought. Kim Yo-Jong, in every speech and official statement, had named Japan an enemy. Yet there was an open secret in Pyongyang that her own office was stocked with the latest Japanese equipment. I had just had my family's lives put on the line over a battered old radio. What rose from somewhere beneath the anger wasn't rage. It was hollowness. That night, for the first time, I truly questioned whether surviving inside this system had ever been possible at all. The morning after the search, I came in at my usual time. Staying home would only raise suspicion. Walking toward the building, every official I passed looked away fast. These were people who had nodded at me in the hallways just yesterday. The Organization and Guidance Department car in front of my apartment had already made its rounds. In Pyongyang, nothing stays secret past morning. No one came near my desk all morning. I ate lunch alone. Sitting in the canteen, forcing food down, I caught fragments of a conversation a few tables away. Low voices. Just a few words. The princess. Haven't seen her. The event. I put down my spoon. Kim Ju-a, the supreme leader's daughter, who had appeared beside her father at every public event like a designated heir. But somewhere along the way, her face had stopped showing up. No photographs, no coverage, no one explained why. In Pyongyang, when a name suddenly disappears from the official record, there is always one explanation: a decision had been made at the top. Leaving the canteen, I thought if even the girl positioned as heir apparent could be erased from the public stage overnight, erased by the very father who built that stage for her, then what was I? Calling myself a sitting duck would have been generous. At least a duck can fly away. All afternoon I stared at papers without reading them. The same scenes kept replaying. Agents with armbands, the radio disappearing into a bag, the bedroom door closing, and those words from the canteen. The princess. Haven't seen her. It wasn't my head that finally decided. It was something lower, more instinctive. My body knew before I did. The moment I got home, I went to the back room and pulled out an old coat. Deep in the pocket, folded flat, a piece of paper I had held onto for months. A broker's contact. I had gotten it through someone I trusted, kept it just in case. That night, for the first time, I unfolded it. From the night I unfolded that paper, I began to move. There was no time left. Once the organization and guidance department visits your home, the second visit could come at any moment. The difference between the first and second visit is simple. The first time, you go back to sleep in your own bed. The second time, you don't come back. I said nothing to my wife. Knowing would put her in danger. Keeping her in the dark was the only way to protect her. My son had fallen asleep early. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching his face. There was nothing I could say. Nothing I was allowed to say. Getting out of Pyongyang was the hardest stretch. Checkpoints everywhere. Moving between districts without a travel permit was almost impossible. The broker had arranged a cargo truck. I climbed into the back, wedged myself behind a row of grain sacks. When the truck started moving, I held my breath. At every checkpoint, the truck slowed. When agents shone flashlights toward the cargo hold, my heart stopped. After the second checkpoint, the truck suddenly halted. Voices outside, short, quiet exchanges. I pressed deeper behind the sacks. I stopped breathing. I don't know how much time passed. Then the engine turned over again. I reached the border region of North Hamgyong province 2 days later, just before dawn. The broker had scouted a crossing point, narrow current, shallow water. Before wading in, I turned back once. In the darkness, a light moved in the distance. Headlights or a patrol flashlight, I couldn't tell. There was no time to wait. I stepped into the river. The water reached my knees. Cold enough to bite through everything. Every time my foot slipped on the rocks, I tightened every muscle in my body. No sound. Chinese patrols might be on the other side too. Halfway across, I heard something behind me. Voices, maybe. I didn't turn around. I kept walking. Faster. The moment my foot touched the far bank, I stopped. I looked back. Nothing. No light, no movement. Silence. That silence didn't feel like relief. It felt cold. Too quiet can be its own kind of threat. I turned away from the river and started walking. There was no going back north. Only forward. The first 3 days after crossing the Tumen, I barely moved. A storage room in the home of an ethnic Korean woman the broker had arranged. No windows. Dark even in the afternoon. 1 meal a day came in. The bathroom was available only at night. Stepping outside was forbidden. If Chinese police found me, I'd be sent back. Going back to North Korea wasn't going back, it was a death sentence. During the days, there was no sound. That was the problem. No sound, and yet I kept hearing things. Footsteps in the corridor. Distinct, unmistakable. I'd hold my breath and focus, they'd stop. Then come again. Each time, I pressed myself against the back wall of the storage room. The sound of agents kicking open doors played on a loop inside my head. The image of my wife pressed against the wall, my son beside her, layered over everything I saw. Days passed. The sounds didn't stop. The broker moved me to a different room. It didn't help. New walls, same footsteps. A sound near the door. Low whispering. I'd check, no one there. The absence was worse than the presence. I had crossed into a state where nothing is more terrifying than silence. There had been a story circulating among Pyongyang officials. Kim Yo-Jong ran a separate unit for dealing with defectors abroad, off the books. Never confirmed, but widely understood among senior cadres. Defectors who vanished in China. A man who died in a traffic accident in a third country while attempting asylum. I thought about those stories in the dark of that storage room. The reach was long. I knew that. In the car from Kunming to Jinghong, the broker handed me a sheet of paper. A written agreement I would repay the full transportation cost after arriving in South Korea. The amount was significant. The broker said nothing while I read it. Chinese countryside rolled past the window. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled as I signed. Not because of the money. I was signing a promise about arriving somewhere I had no guarantee of reaching. I didn't know this broker. I didn't know where this document would end up. But there were no other options. If I stepped out of this car, there was nowhere to go. I signed. The car pulled back onto the road. The broker folded the paper into his pocket and said simply, "I'll give you a contact number when you reach Korea." It didn't sound like reassurance. It sounded like a warning. I stared out the window. In North Korea, the Organization and Guidance Department had hunted me. In China, the police were the threat. And now a broker's signed agreement had its hand around my throat. I hadn't known freedom came attached to this many strings. Not until I crossed the Tumen River. Still, stopping was not an option. Stopping was the same as dying. From Kunming to Jinghong was half a day's drive. From Jinghong, we moved to the Mohan border crossing. From there, we walked. Unpaved dirt trail through the jungle, the route into Botan, a border village in Laos. We moved for over an hour on a narrow path through the trees, avoiding the official checkpoint. Following the footsteps of the person ahead was all there was to do. Once inside Laos, we switched back to vehicles. The broker barely spoke. Short, necessary words only. I didn't ask questions. Laos was not safe for North Korean defectors. Discovery meant repatriation. I kept my eyes off the windows. Everything outside read as a threat. We reached the Mekong deep in the night. The river was wide, no comparison to the Tumen. The far bank was Thailand. The broker pointed to a small wooden boat. It looked barely large enough for 3 people. 4 of us climbed in. The hull rocked under our weight. When the oars started moving, there was only river noise. No one spoke. I fixed my eyes on the bottom of the boat. Then my hand found something inside my coat. I had carried one thing out of Pyongyang. The envelope Director Ri had given me was gone. The agents took it, but I had separately kept a single document. An internal directive bearing the director's signature. I hadn't known what use it might be, but I couldn't leave it behind. 7 years distilled onto one sheet of paper. In the middle of the river, I took it out. Even in the dark, the texture of the paper was clear in my fingers. If I made it to Korea, this might prove something. But if Thai police stopped me or if someone else found it first, this document wouldn't save me. It would bury me. A North Korean defector carrying internal state documents. What that sentence could become, I couldn't predict. I held it for a long moment. The river moved around us. The boat swayed. Then I let go. The paper floated briefly on the dark water, then disappeared. 7 years, carried downstream. The boat touched the Thai bank. The moment my feet found sand, lights moved in the distance. A Thai police patrol. The broker said quietly, "Just tell them you're a North Korean defector." I stood there and waited for the lights to get closer. I didn't run. For the first time, being caught was the way to stay alive. Thailand did not repatriate North Korean defectors. I had repeated that single fact to myself hundreds of times to get here. The officers approached. A flashlight swept across my face. I didn't close my eyes. I had spent long enough in the dark. Now I could look straight into the light. I spent a month in a Thai immigration detention center. A small room packed with people from different countries. No shared language. The routine was simple: wake up, eat, wait. But this waiting was different from Pyongyang's waiting. There was no dread of a door being kicked open. That alone was enough to breathe. After processing through the South Korean embassy, I boarded a plane. I took the window seat. At liftoff, I watched the city below fall away. It didn't matter which country it was. What mattered was that it was getting smaller. After arriving in South Korea and beginning settlement training at Hanwon, I still couldn't sleep through the night. My wife closing the bedroom door. My son standing against the wall. On a loop, every night. There was no way to contact them. Reaching out would put them at risk. So doing nothing was the only thing I could do. That helplessness arrived before any sense of freedom. Not long after leaving Hanwon, my phone rang. A text followed a Chinese account number. The broker. The amount from the agreement. The voice on the phone was low and polite. That politeness was the most unsettling part. I hadn't even found my footing in South Korea, and the debt had already come knocking. Freedom had a price, a heavy one. In Pyongyang, I lacked for nothing. Chief Secretary of Department 10. My rations were never cut, my apartment was spacious, I had a car. But none of it was mine. The state was the owner. The moment you fell out of favor, everything was repossessed. That's exactly what happened. My first morning in South Korea, I walked alone to a convenience store. I stood in front of the counter for a long time. No one told me what to pick. When I finished paying and turned to leave, the clerk smiled and said thank you. I stopped. Being thanked felt foreign. In Pyongyang, you gave deference to those above you. You didn't receive it. The sky over Seoul looks different from the sky over Pyongyang. Wider, somehow. Or maybe it's because I was finally looking up without being watched. Every morning I open the window and look at that sky. A small thing. But for me, it's how I confirm each morning that I'm still here. This morning, I opened the window and breathed in. It wasn't some grand ideology that kept me alive. It was an old Toshiba radio. The day that radio was found, I felt in my bones exactly how riddled with contradiction this system is. People who declared Japan the enemy, while their own offices ran on Japanese equipment, those were the people interrogating me. In that moment, I knew I could no longer survive inside it. My family in the north is on my mind every day. What grade my son is in now. Whether my wife is still in the same place. I don't know. Not knowing is the heaviest thing I carry. I hope this story reaches someone still holding on inside North Korea or someone outside who wants to understand what that life is. If this video was meaningful to you, please subscribe and leave a like. Your attention is what allows stories like this to keep